Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, a Nation's Restaurant News podcast. I'm your host, Holly Petre, here with the latest episode, and I'm here to introduce my wonderful co-host for the episode.
I am Sam Oches, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
I'm Leanne Zinsmeister, Managing Editor of Nation's Restaurant News.
And I am Senior Food and Beverage Editor Bret Thorn.
Welcome, Bret.
Hi.
Did you miss us?
Always.
Good. We dragged Bret into this. I gotta do another podcast recording.
I liked chatting with you people, and I'm a bit of a ham, so I don't mind, being recorded.
Speaking of Bret being a ham, Bret, just a little tease too for our audience. We have some videos coming out from the NRA show that everybody should go check out when they're ready. But Bret, I had a few solid LOLs watching your video of you walking the floor at NRA show. Multiple LOLs.
Wow. Well, great.
Yeah. So everybody, the audience here, just something for them to all look forward to. Go watch Bret's walking the floor video from the NRA show.
I can't believe you just said LOL instead of just saying that you laughed out loud.
Holly, I'm young at heart, so I speak like the kids speak, right? That's what they say these days.
As far as I can tell, you're all kids, so.
Oh boy, don't call Sam a kid to his face. It'll go to his head.
I'll show you my grays again if you really want.
On your freshly cut head.
That's right. Feeling a little lighter today. What are we talking about today? This is already spiraling.
Of course it's spiraling. It's us. It always spirals. I don't look like an elf today, though, so we're already cutting out one segment.
Yeah, Bret, last week, Holly thought she looked like Orlando Bloom in Lord of the Rings, so
that was a whole segment.
That's great.
That's it.
Oh, Bret. I love Bret's humor, because he just is like, I don't care.
Yeah, some people say I'm a little bit of a jerk.
You're
Well,
not.
Bret, you had a really interesting podcast interview on In the Kitchen this week. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'd love to tell our audience, bring in a little bit of the RH podcasts to our NRN audience.
Yes. Remind me who was featured this week.
You had Rocco DiSpirito and Troy Guard on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Rocco DiSpirito and Troy Guard. Rocco, who I hadn't spoken to in probably 15 years, and Troy, who I spoke to last year. I think he was my first repeat guest on the podcast. They are doing some collaborative dinners in Denver, where Troy Guard is one of the great restaurateurs of the city, for a couple of different charities. One is called We Don't Waste, which is a food organization, and then one to help support the victims of the horrible fires that struck Boulder County around New Year. And we caught up on their styles and what kind of food they were cooking, and it was a good chat. I think it was my first double guest chat. I want to do more of those.
One of the things that I love most about your podcast is that, so many of these guests. So, you had Rocco DiSpirito on, who's a celebrity chef. He's very well known. You had Jet Tila on recently, who's also another celebrity chef, and you just know these people, and you have such a great rapport with them, and it's just so great to hear. You're like, I haven't talked to you in 10 years, or we just met up for dinner, or you were telling me the story of how you went out for drinks with them the other night, and I just love to hear this very casual conversation that you have with them. You just have a way with people, and it's so great to hear that on these podcasts, and it's so nice to just hear this very human element to people that you bring out in them.
Oh, shucks. I actually was drinking with Rocco and Troy after, not immediately after, because Troy wasn't in New York yet, but Troy came to town for a gala dinner, and I met up with him and Rocco and some other people. It was nice.
Things to aspire to, Holly. There you go.
Don't worry. I was talking to Bret afterwards, and I was like, very jealous because he was I was in the office with Bret that day, the day that he was telling me all about this, and he was like, "Oh, tonight I'm going to get drinks with all these people," and I was like, "I'm so jealous."
Tell me, is Rocco DiSpirito, wasn't he kind of like the original celebrity chef? Or wasn't he, I mean, a big deal like 20 years ago, and it was kind of the birth of the foodie movement? Am I getting that right?
I mean, there was already Emerald. There was
Sure, and there's Julia Child and all those folks, but
yeah, and Paul Prudhomme and Wolfgang Puck. But he began the well, I guess what's the current celebrity chef thing, in that he was on this what I think was the first reality TV show related to restaurants, and that
That's
was
right.
called The Restaurant. And he didn't come across looking all that great. And we didn't know at the time that the whole point of reality TV was to make people not look great. So
attention.
yeah. So yeah, and then he kind of he's come back and forth into restaurants. He did have a restaurant in New York, I don't know, a couple years before the pandemic, but he didn't stay around all that long. And he's moved more in the direction of celebrity than chef, and I understand why, because it seems like being a celebrity requires less time than being a chef. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I still watch Top Chef pretty religiously. My wife and I still enjoy watching that. And if you watch a lot of those folks who were on the show before, and this is no disrespect to any of them who are amazingly talented and very good on
Right.
camera, but a lot of them don't have restaurants anymore. They are more just food personalities, because I think they discover if you've got a talent in front of a camera, performing as a personality, sometimes there's more opportunity than that, and certainly less stress than being in the restaurant industry and being a chef. So it's interesting how those things have diverged.
And it's easier on your feet and on your back.
Right. And lifestyle.
But it's also
Bonus.
it's interesting that the reason a lot of people ended up in kitchens is because they're kind of sociopaths. They don't really like other humans that much. They want to be left alone in the back of the house to cook and to hang out with, their fellow sociopath cooks. So the fact that some of them, it turns out, are, engaging in front of a camera is interesting. And I mean, and it's good for the industry and good for the celebrities. But possibly, I don't know, maybe it's extremely stressful for them. And they suck it up and do it because, well, for reasons of their own. I don't know why. I think we've talked about how being famous actually would not be awesome, because you can't, go out to the store and buy a thing without people hounding it.
Right. Or a industry conference or something like that. I mean, depending on how much
Right.
you like attention, it could be annoying. But at the same time, I mean, you think about all the doors it does open for you too. I mean, I personally believe a lot of people who go on to Top Chef or any of these other reality shows, you know that the potential of winning the contest is not strong. Like, your chances are pretty low that you'll actually win. But win or lose, you've got media talking about you, you've got attention, investors probably call you up and say, let's do a thing. And so it's just the doors you open ultimately are probably worth it for folks who do this. And so, more power to people if that's what they're looking for.
Totally. And I hear that it's good for business. Like, if you have a restaurant and you're on Top Chef, more customers come to your restaurant.
Right.
I would think so.
Yeah.
All right, now let's get into the news. We've talked a lot about celebrity,
Okay.
but which is my favorite topic, and Leanne's too. So, even though Leanne said
So
nothing
be
about
careful.
celebrity,
Tread lightly.
Celebrity
celebrity.
chef is not my area of expertise, but if you want to start a podcast about the Marvel actors, call me.
maybe that could be one of our offshoot podcasts, Leanne.
All right, real quick, Leanne, who's your favorite Chris?
Evans.
Ah, okay, good
Come on,
answer.
everyone else on this call already knew that.
Everyone else on the phone knew that easily.
I don't think
Brett
I
and
knew the
Holly
answer to
could
that
have answered
question.
that for me. Evans
I
is the
didn't
best,
know.
Chris.
Didn't know. Okay.
Didn't you see my face
now you
that you
do.
even asked?
Unbelievable.
It's amazing to me, though. I didn't even have to explain that question. I mean, you were just so ready for the answer to that question. So, well done.
Easiest
And my
question
answer
I've
would have
ever
been
answered.
my answer would have been different, but I don't know that we need to go down that rabbit hole.
Who's your favorite Chris? Go on, Brett. We can all do our favorite Chris's.
Is it Hemsworth?
Okay, Hemsworth. Okay.
Hemsworth.
I knew that about Brett.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Holly?
Pretty shallow.
I
Holly,
don't
favorite
have
Chris?
a favorite. I don't have a favorite. I can't answer that question.
So mine is Pratt, but only because of Parks and Recreation. I know that he's probably the least favorite for most folks of the Chris's, but Parks and Rec version Chris Pratt is. I like that Chris.
Personality-wise, the public persona Chris Pratt is great. I like him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed him very much in Parks and Rec.
Moving on.
Yes.
Oh wow, Holly being the mature one, keeping us on schedule. Well done.
Moving on to Panera, which actually feels like a very Chris Pratt brand. They feel very on par with each other. I just feel like Chris Pratt would go to a Panera for some reason. But moving on to Panera, which Brett's nodding. I think Brett agrees with me. Panera is
certainly
testing,
more than the other Chris's. Yeah.
right?
I mean, I go to Panera a lot. Like, what's the big deal about going to Panera? Why do you have to be a
There's
Chris
no
Pratt
big
to go to
deal.
a Panera?
They just feels like he would be drawn to a Panera. I feel like there's something about a Panera and Chris Pratt that just really feel like they go together. So I'm just saying, Panera reach out to Chris Pratt because it feels like that'd be a really nice marketing opportunity for you.
We're not telling you what to do, but if Chris Pratt's available, just saying.
Holly, just out of curiosity, have you ever been to a Panera?
Yes. Oh, I love Panera.
Okay, just checking. I know you haven't been to as many of the chain restaurants, so I like
No. I used to go to
figure out where
Panera
we
all the
stand.
time. I
Okay,
used to go to Panera all the time in college. I used to get their black bean soup when I was a vegetarian. I went there all the time because I used to get their black bean soup in a bread bowl with
Okay.
a side salad.
okay,
That was my
just
order.
making sure. All right,
Constantly.
so what's going on at Panera?
So Panera, who should call Chris Pratt, it has opened up a to-go only unit in Chicago, where I went to college. So that would be very convenient for me. But they've opened up a to-go only unit. So they're following in the trends of a lot of other restaurant chains that have opened up these to-go only units. So what do we think about Panera opening this up? I mean, this is kind of a strange move for Panera because I feel like Panera is very much about like, come join us, come be with us at Panera, come experience us. Like they have their bread bowls, they have their soups, they have their salads. It's much more of like they are fast casual, but they're much more about like a please stay here with us. I don't really imagine Panera as like a grab and go kind of place.
Did you eat in their restaurant when you were having your black bean soup?
Always.
Okay.
I think, restaurant chains have to go where the money is. And something that surprised me a little bit in this story is that last year, 81% of Panera's sales were through off-premises channels. So I think Panera has seen, like, whether it's what we want or not, this is how our customers want to access us. And so let's lead into it and, make that an option, more of an option for them. I'm guessing it's, less expensive operationally. They can have fewer people working there. It makes sense for a lot of reasons. I think Chicago is a good testing ground. It's urban. People are on the go anyway, except for college age Holly, who wants to sit down with a bowl of soup. So I don't know. I thought this made sense as a business move, and it's one of, half a dozen restaurant chains that are announcing new prototypes this week. So definitely on trend.
And also probably a smaller real estate footprint, which is important in places like Chicago, where it's expensive and where it's probably hard to find a Panera-sized piece of land.
Yeah, it strikes me that I feel like when Panera first emerged as a national concept, and speaking from a consumer standpoint, because I remember when that happened, I might have been in high school when I first heard about Panera, and I lived in a town that did not get brands like Panera still doesn't have a Panera, but it was a special place. It was like, ooh, have you heard of this like elevated fast food similar to Chipotle? It was like Panera and Chipotle, when they both came up, they had this kind of reputation as being a cool place to be. And it strikes me that Panera over the years, as it's grown, it's become more ubiquitous, it's become more familiar to American consumers. It's kind of settled into a little bit more of being a traditional QSR, but of course fast casual chain. And as such, it feels like the use case of it is probably migrated more toward that of other QSRs, which is more off-premises based, more takeout. I do eat Panera a fair amount because it has a lot of options for my kids, and I will tell you, I don't think my kids have ever eaten inside a Panera, possibly never stepped foot inside a Panera, because takeout delivery is just a lot more convenient. And so all of that is to say, I as Panera has probably moved away from come sit and stay a while, do your homework or work or whatever, and moved more toward the convenience side of things, something like a digital kitchen. To both Leanne and Bret's points, I mean, it makes a ton of sense because they're going to be able to find new neighborhoods, markets to grow into more easily with a digital only location.
Well, I was also in college a long time ago, so this was not a recent thing.
All relative. Long
You
time
were in
ago.
college like
Not
5 years
as
ago.
long ago as Sam.
That's right. Yes. College. What was that? I hardly remember. It was so long ago.
Well, Sam, you brought up Chipotle, and that is our next piece of news, is that Chipotle also introduced a new prototype this week. They introduced they're testing walk-up windows, which I think is really cool. We were talking about this. We were actually talking about this, I think, last week, like just talking about like drive-thrus and the fact that like we were talking about how on the podcast we were talking about drive-thrus and like the fact that like picking up is the equivalent of doing a drive-thru, but now this is actually the equivalent of doing a drive-thru in a city, is going to a pickup window. This is the new equivalent of a drive-thru in a city, is going to a pickup window. So I think it's really cool. We were calling them human lanes yesterday. I mean, it's a weird
Bad
thing
word
to
for
say.
it.
That
I really
quote.
truly.
It was a
Yes,
quote
that was
from
from-
the interview
yeah.
with Chipotle. That is not something that we made up.
And to be fair, I don't think it's something they're officially labeling it a human lane. I think it was a quip, so they're not going to be the human lanes, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, and to be clear, it's less of a new prototype and more it sounds like they're going to start retrofitting existing locations with a walk-up window, particularly if there is no opportunity for the Chipotle lane. I mean, all of this is recognizing that the ways in which customers are experiencing a Chipotle or most other restaurants, if it is increasingly off premises, which it is at most restaurants, then however simply you can make that process, the better. And a walk-up window, particularly in urban locations, to make it, a pickup of your order as quick as possible. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Walk-up windows to me sort of strike of like the burger or ice cream stand in the summer kind of deal. And I think that there's kind of a nice vibe to it that it is kind of a fun experience. I think it could be. Of course, Chipotle is more seeing it as convenience, get you in and out as fast as possible. But it makes sense, and if it's not too much of a expensive retrofit to existing locations, then why not?
Well, and as a non-car owner, I've been annoyed when I've wanted something maybe late at night at a quick service restaurant, and all that's open is the drive-thru, and it was illegal to walk up to a drive-thru. They're like, nope, you got to be in a car. I should go somewhere, find a car, drive up, and then
Uber.
order?
That's who you Uber now. You ask the guy to take you through the drive-thru.
Wow, that's a thought. But I would rather just walk up rather than spend an extra $9 or whatever on my food. Being able to just walk up like a person, not spending $5 a gallon on gas either, and pick up my stuff. I love it.
Totally. We have some, I don't know about Chipotle's, but there's at least one McDonald's that I know of in Brooklyn that has a walk-up window, and some other, QSRs, because most people here don't have cars. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. And the first one that they're doing is in Gainesville, which is a college town. So probably another environment where not everybody has a car. So yeah.
And
makes
everybody
sense
is
to me.
drunkenly stumbling by that walk-up window thinking, wow, Chipotle sounds great right now.
Probably.
Chipotle
Not that
sounds
I
great
would
right now, and
know
I've just had
anything about
coffee.
that.
So,
Chipotle does sound good. Yeah.
right? Chipotle sounds great right now. It's about lunchtime. We always record this at lunchtime, and I'm always just hankering for some food. Chipotle sounds great.
It's the theme of Holly. One last thing I would say about this too is, and not to equate Chipotle too much with the concept of street food, but I sort of think there's some energy to a walk-up window that's sort of the equivalent of like street food, right? Like if you have the whole interaction happening. I mean, restaurants pulling everybody off the street is a real kind of community buzzkill, but if you kind of keep everybody out there, there's a little bit, you can tap into some of that energy. So I don't know if that's in Chipotle's mind at all, but makes
Well,
sense
there
to me.
is really kind of a street food connection with Chipotle, and that Steve Ells founded Chipotle after he lived in San Francisco and was inspired by the Mission Burritos of
True.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, which is street food-ish. I mean, you go into a restaurant to get them, but it's street food-ish.
Yeah.
So there we go. We talked about 2 new prototypes this week.
Fun.
Now we get to talk about the Wendyverse. There was no reaction to that. I thought that there would be like some sort of
Think-
reaction.
We were waiting for your
Yay!
entry into the Wendyverse.
I thought that there'd be like a woo, like a metaverse kind of thing.
or did you want
I
it to
thought
be
there'd
like a Wendyverse?
Yeah, I thought that there would be like
you
something,
go.
like some sort of reaction from you guys, of like excitement. I was just waiting.
You know
for
what
that.
we need is we need those sound effects that you can, like if we were a radio show and we had a sound effect for every time you mentioned the Wendyverse and you could press a button and go boing or something like that.
Do we really want the boing?
No.
Sam
Boing.
does.
I'm thinking more of an enhanced echo, as you tried to do with your voice, Sam.
Sound effect. You need one? Come to me.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Well, Wendy's has added more. They've expanded. They've added Sunrise City, which to me sounds like an old person home, but to each their
They're
own.
clearly promoting their breakfast.
To each their own. Does it not sound like an old person home? I mean,
No,
come on.
You're not wrong.
my grandparents live in a neighborhood called Sun City, so I hear ya.
It sounds like it sounds like that. So they've added some new games. You can play with bacon. It sounds really cool. I mean, but I've heard some rumblings that, like, it's basically like playing games on like an early version of the internet. So that like the metaverse is still kind of early, that it's not like playing games that like we're used to. So, what do you guys think?
Couldn't I
You
just
know-
download a Wendy's game app on my phone and then play a more sophisticated game that would also give me whatever? I imagine you play and you get points for a menu item, that kind of thing.
You could if that existed.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great.
I give Wendy's a lot of credit. We've talked about the Wendyverse on the podcast before, and we've said the whole time that they're one of the most advanced in terms of the metaverse right now. Lots of restaurant chains are investing in the metaverse, but not really doing anything with it yet. And Wendy's right off the bat was like, we have games, we have like this and that. I don't know what these things are, but it sounds impressive. And so the fact that they're already expanding and adding on to what they've got, like, good for them. It's probably not the highest of tech yet, but they're getting it on the ground floor, and who knows, where we'll be with this in 10 years. I'm sure it'll be something we can't even fathom right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume that they were successful with the first metaverse rollout, if they're expanding. But yeah, it's funny because I think so much about the metaverse in restaurants right now is just planting your flag, owning the real estate before it blows up. And it might not blow up for 10 years. But if Wendy's gets in and they start scooping up this digital real estate, virtual real estate, and 10 years from now some people predict, Metaverse is going to be huge and everybody will be doing it. Wendy's will be laughing at us all, saying, ha 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 ha, half the world is a Wendy's because we were on top of it back in 2022. So yeah, it's interesting. I would encourage everybody to go check out Joanna Fantozzi's feature on the Metaverse that we ran in our May issue, because one of the interesting takeaways from that article was how some experts believe the metaverse itself, that virtual reality isn't actually going to be as big a deal as some are making it out to be, but that augmented reality might be more the play, the virtual overlaying of the actual physical world. So anyway, I would encourage people to go check that out, because Joanna talked to lots of folks about what the implications are for metaverse in the restaurant industry. But at this point in time, metaverse for restaurants is go own the real estate now, just like if you were going to register your domain in 1995. Just get it now and be ready for whatever is to come.
I'll go ahead and remain extremely skeptical, just so that people can laugh at me more later on.
Fair enough.
Well, Bret, why don't you tell us about your interview this week?
I spoke with Owen Klein, who is the head of menu development for CKE restaurants. That's Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. And we spoke mostly about their limited time offers that are on the market now, tied into Jurassic World Dominion. We spoke in the beginning of May, before this stuff was launched, and I went down to the Franklin, Tennessee headquarters, which was fun. I got to go to a Waffle House, which I don't get to do very often living here in New York. And but we also talked about the menu development process and how palettes are different in different places where CKE operates. The West is where Carl's Jr. is, and Hardee's is in the Midwest and the Southeast, and palettes are different, and impressions, ideas that people have of what they like is different. For example, Midwesterners might not think they like spicy food, but they like horseradish and mustard, so they do like spicy food. But it's a question of how you phrase it, and that, of course, is very important when it comes to putting things on the menu. There's an amber sauce on all of the Jurassic World Dominion related menu items. Amber being the substance in which dinosaur DNA was first discovered in the original Jurassic Park movie. And in fact, Owen Klein and his entire 10-member culinary development team, 10 including himself, watched the entire Jurassic Park series, all of the movies, before they got into menu development. They were not messing around.
That's
By the
crazy.
way, we couldn't have planned better our Chris conversation to lead into Jurassic World related interview. You're welcome, podcast world.
Smooth.
Like we did
You're
it on
welcome,
purpose.
Jurassic World.
Yes, that's right.
Jurassic World
All
Dominion.
right, well,
That's the name of the
Dominion.
movie. So I'm told.
Dominion. Oh,
Jurassic
There you go.
World Dominion. Who's gonna win? Humans
Well-
or dinosaurs?
oh, that's the theme of the movie? I think dinosaurs are going to win. I mean, they're a little scary.
It's the theme of
it's
every
a-
Jurassic Park, Holly.
And
I've never
honestly,
seen
since-
one of them.
Wow.
Holly!
I watched Land Before Time when I was a kid, and that scarred me. I can't watch any more dinosaur movies.
It almost worries me more that you haven't seen Jurassic Park than that you had not been to a Wendy's. Like that almost like surprises me.
I told you, I
worries
watched
me more.
Land Before Time, and it scarred me, and I can't watch dinosaur movies.
Yikes.
We got to unpack this sometime. Different podcast.
I have to
Yeah.
say that since it's a movie, I want the dinosaurs to win. Because in real life, no, I'm team human. But in a movie,
That's good.
it doesn't matter. Let the dinosaurs win.
I'm with you there.
There you go.
All right, well, everyone, it's been a treat. Thank you so much for talking with me today. Everybody stay tuned for the interview, and thank you so much. Catch y'all next week.